All right, friends, it's T-Man, and we're going to do a new video. We're going to react to a brand new video by Greg Doucette. And, yeah, the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness, gear slave himself, Greg Doucette. He is the recruiting slave. So, Greg Doucette says, scientific snitch. All right, let's see.
So, for example, an argument would be, well, Greg, you're on HRT, so you don't need to bulk and cut. But if I'm doing it natural, I need to bulk and cut. Do you think there's a difference between natties and enhanced?
I need to bulk and cut. So I need to get fat, and then I need to get skinny again. Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. So I want to hypertrophy my fat cells. I don't want to hypertrophy through muscle cells. I want to hypertrophy fat cells, and then get skinny again, get cut. That is just ridiculous.
In terms of the need to bulk and cut.
I would argue.
So he said the differences between natural people and people that are in. I like he uses the word enhanced. I would say cosmetic because he's not using it for enhanced purposes. He's using it now for cosmetic purposes. See that? These steroids. So is there a difference? Hell yeah, man. You're taking cosmetics, dude. That's fake. It's artificial. That's not natural.
You the exact opposite because
you got to do the opposite. You're taking a cosmetic that makes no sense. Are natural people do they have to do it different than people taking cosmetics? Well, if you're taking a cosmetic, it's kind of obvious. Hello, duh. Whatever.
Coach Greg, and I'm here with scientific snitch, and she goes by the name of Ella, and her channel's exploding in popularity. This girl had like.
Of course, these ding dong chicks, their channels are always exploding. It's garbage. Does she look like she lifts? She's just sitting there on the beanbag. But her channel is exploding like she knows all about lifting, bro. Get it? Because she's using the real science. Uh-huh.
Like 50,000 followers about a month ago. She's almost at 90,000. And so she's going to the moon. I'm telling you guys, in a year or two.
She's going to the moon, man, because she knows everything about building muscle, even though nobody out there is building any muscle. Okay.
She's going to have 1 million followers. And so I highly recommend you follow her channel. And so welcome.
Thank you, Greg. It's really great to be on the channel. So yeah, I work in a lab. I do coaching. I like everything to do with science.
And what's shocking to
22 years old. She works in a lab and she does coaching at 22. I don't even coach anybody. I'm 57 and I got more experience than her.
me is I've watched your content. I'm a fan. You're very educated, but I come to find out you're only 22 years of age. How is it possible that you know so much about training, nutrition?
She doesn't. She's faking it. But you people are too stupid to see that. But okay, whatever.
Everything at such a young age.
I kind of started a little earlier when I first learned how to read studies. And after I learned how to read studies, I just started reading like a study every weekend.
She doesn't even understand those studies. Nobody does. People are too stupid to understand what they're getting in the study. You don't need studies to know how to build muscles. There's enough science out there that tells you what builds muscles.
And it was something that became a hobby of mine, and I would make TikTok videos on the studies I read. They eventually popped off. And since then, I've just kind of upgraded my knowledge and talked to other professionals who are on online platforms. And I feel like there's always something to say that everybody has a piece of knowledge that you don't have. So if you learn what that is, then you're going to make yourself a smarter person at the end of the day.
Well, I got enough knowledge. I had to learn it on my own, a lot of it. Nobody taught me anything. But I do talk about it on this channel since my old channel was taken down by YouTube. I mean, I still bring up some of it on here, right? I've done a lot of stuff.
I think what I really like about your videos is that you give the science behind what people actually think. So for example, you'll mention Jeff Nippert or Paul Saladino.
Oh, that's why she's popular. She'll bring up Jeff Nippert, the fake natty, or Paul Saladino, who's swinging every which way with fruits and carnivore, whatever, because he's trying to capture both markets. He's desperate for money. Okay.
or Eddie Abu or all these guys who might
Oh yeah, I love Eddie Abu, the steroid user. And then he comes out and tells you all this food you're eating now is junk and everything, and you should be eating this, do this, that. But he doesn't really totally promote a carnivore diet. He tell you you should be eating natural raw milk, raw animal products, raw, natural, and uncooked.
say
But he doesn't.
something and you're like, this is what the actual science says, and then we can have a debate. It's nothing against the person. It's just this is what the science is saying, and you report it in a very concise manner, about 1 minute in length.
As far
I've done the same thing too, and my channel ain't growing. I brought out the science. I actually put it right in the face of people, and I'm not gonna get no 90,000 followers, that's for sure, because people out there are a bunch of losers.
as like the science goes, I feel like there's a very big emphasis on one point in many different influencers where they'll grasp on to this one idea and they won't let go of it for the life of them.
Yeah.
And it's really important to acknowledge that new science comes
Yeah, there's a lot of these people like these guys. They grasp onto an idea because they're trying to sell something. There's a difference if you're trying to sell something, market something. They're into marketing, little girl.
out every year or so. So even I might be wrong in maybe a year or so, but it's just about like making sure to look at the more
Well, I was never really into the whole food thing. You know, I had to figure it out too. People fed me a slave diet growing up. I was like everybody else, enslaved in this world. I came out of the Matrix enslaved. But yeah, you know, I didn't come out in nature. I came out in this artificial environment called the Matrix.
broader range of the information that's out there rather than just focusing and hyperfixating on that one point and never budging from it. It's always important to be skeptical, and I feel like
I'm skeptical. I never just stick to one thing. I'm always learning like everybody else. You learn forever and then you die stupid. It's like that.
that's what needs to be added to the discussion when it comes to fitness and health.
Very good point. With new science,
Little girl, fitness and health is about profit. That's why they're doing it, to make money. Look at Greg back there. Look at all his books, his tablets, all his stuff that he sells is all this stuff. That's where he makes the majority of his money. I mean, look at that picture he has over there with that Janicki guy. He's obsessed with him now all of a sudden. He's got a picture of him there as well. I guess because he's got him as affiliate. He's selling his products for him as well.
new opinions comes out and things change. And so we see that with new supplements coming in all the time. But another thing that we've seen is the topic of main gaining.
All the money in the world is not going to change what Greg is. A manlet. An ugly manlet at that. An old ugly manlet at that. Yep.
Come and gone. Today, I think that bulking is vaulted, or it's basically bullshit at this point, that we don't need to bulk and cut, which I'm going to say 95% of people think you need to bulk and then cut in order.
Yeah, that's so stupid. You need to get fat, hypertrophy your fat cells, and then you need to get cut. Now you need to lose the fat. That is ridiculous. You're going to age yourself. You're going to destroy your health yourself.
Put on muscle, that's the optimal way to do it. I've seen some
So that's how you put on muscle, by hypertrophying your fat cells and then getting skinny. What? That made absolutely 0 sense. Greg, a zero.
of your videos, and so let's have a little discussion. Do you need to bulk and cut to put on muscle optimally, or could you, for example, maintain a healthy body fat percentage, which I say is, for example, for men, let's call it 15%, for women 25%, and just slowly
I don't know. Could you?
put on muscle over time? Or should we bulk up to perhaps 10 or 20 pounds, get on a bit more fat?
Yeah, he just admitted, get a little bit more fat. Should we bulk up to 10, 15 pounds? So should we hypertrophy our fat cells? Should we hypertrophy them so we can get up to 15, 20 pounds of fat?
A bit more sloppy, and then diet down, and will that be, in fact,
And then after we get fat, diet down, and then, man, this is just stupid.
better based on the studies that you've seen?
Based on the study,
Steroids are wasting drugs. They are there to preserve you from wasting away. That's what they do. So they also create a cosmetic look. Yeah. And they're enhanced performing because they're hormones. So they enhance your performance. But they themselves do not build muscles. Get it? The molecule doesn't donate its nuclei. The satellite cell has to donate its nuclei. And guess what? It has reached a ceiling limit during hypertrophic process beyond where the satellite cell can donate any more extra nuclei to that domain to support further muscle growth. Like it says in MND size limit, myonuclear domain size limit. Get it?
Is I've seen that bulking and cutting is not supported
And that's the real science.
by the literature, at least to the extent that people think. A lot of people will cite these short, and I say short term because this is the longest study we'll ever have on this topic, but short term or quote unquote long term outcome studies in people who are trained in bulking. But the issue is that they never compare it to actually doing like a main gaining sort of thing that you preached. And honestly, it makes a lot more sense to do that than bulking up and gaining body fat. Because if you want to think about it like this, if you're gaining body fat, those calories aren't going towards your muscle, they're going towards body fat. And if you're just storing body fat over time, you're
Exactly. I agree with her.
eventually going to have to cut back down. And when you do, then you're taking calories away from carbs, which depletes you of glycogen. You're taking calories away from protein, which takes away one of the main signals of muscle hypertrophy. Or you're taking away fats, which can have a bad impact on your mood and your overall mental health. So it's a mixture of you have to take something away at a certain point, alongside the fact that if you're putting on body fat, it's not muscle. Like you can't just force body fat to turn to muscle. And if we can build muscle in a deficit.
Exactly. You can't force muscle cells to convert to, fat cells to convert to muscle cells. Impossible.
Then we can build muscle at maintenance.
Yeah, the trouble I had with that was always like, I can see.
And how do you build muscle at maintenance if you've run out of nuclei? Without them, you cannot synthesize any more protein. You cannot support further muscle growth of that domain. So what are you going to do?
How eating in a calorie surplus and more calories, force feeding perhaps, would build a little bit more muscle. I can get behind that. Okay, I'm like, okay, that makes sense, like logically. But then
I think these people are daft. They worked out. They went to the gym. They reached a myonuclear domain size limit, okay? And then they're like, oh, I've reached my newbie gain limit or my genetic limit, or maybe I'm just a hard gainer. That's the excuses they use when they reach that myonuclear domain size limit. Okay, beyond where the satellite cell can donate any more extra nuclei to that domain to support further muscle growth. All right. So what do? Well, I got a bulk diet. I got to bulk. I got to get fat. I got to do this. I got to do that, which is just stupid.
you're fatter, and now you have to go on a diet, and so now you're in a deficit.
Yeah, you got fatter. Did you build any muscle? No, you didn't build any muscle because you reached a domain limit. Get it? You reached it when you first came in the gym, man. Jesus Christ.
And so while I'm main gaining and eating what I need, you're now in a cut. And so how could you possibly build as much muscle while you're dieting? And so
you don't. You build muscle when you get an adaptation. The only time you ever build muscle is in an adaptation. If there's no adaptation, there is zero muscle growth. At zero. Get it, bro? So you bulking is not adapting. You understand me? Bulking is not adapting. Muscles are not adapting because you're bulking. Get it, dude? They don't adapt that way.
I feel like both methods in the end are going to result in the exact same amount of muscle built over, say, a year, 2 years, or 5 or 10 years.
No, you ain't gaining any more muscle unless you get a new adaptation. And if you're not, and if you don't get one, or if you're not, or whatever, then you are not building any muscle. The only thing you're getting there as a trained athlete and coming in often to the gym, you become what we would call an endurance athlete, an endurance lifter. So now, because you're eating an artificial diet called carbohydrates, Greg, eating the fake cookbook, the anabolic, or I call it the estrogenic cookbook that you have there, increasing estrogens over there. eating those carbohydrates, you're going to gain sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. That's why in PubMed or NCBI they tell you 6 weeks, 6 weeks of what is it, high volume training in trained young men are equated to a sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. There you go. You can look it up yourself. I don't have to bring up all these things, man. It's sarcoplasmic. There's two types of hypertrophy. One is artificial and one is real. So one is based on myofibrillar growth. The other one is based on sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. So even if you are a natural lifter, if you're moving for sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, that's artificial muscle growth. You are a fake natty if you're trying to tell me that those are real muscles you built. Get it? By eating fucking carbohydrates all day and lifting in the gym like a lifting slave.
That's 100% what I basically preach. And a big reason, and I actually also, even though I do feel like there is a potential to build more muscle on a bulk, I don't think that the way that a lot of people.
Again, you're not going to build any more muscle on a bulk unless you get more myonuclei. And that domain had ended during that hypertrophic process. So you need to get a new adaptation. You have to graduate, and none of you are.
Do bulk when they first start getting into the gym.
An adaptation means that you get muscles to damage. When they damage, they repair and remodel a lot bigger and stronger. So now they are resilient or resistant from further assaults from your shitty workouts. Get it? Get it, lady? And Greg Doucette, you understand? So you have to come in there and you have to assault them now. You have to graduate and assault them a lot harder than the last time. But it can't happen with a repeated bout. It won't happen with a repeated bout because of the repeated bout effect phenomenon. It's protected. This damage is protected from many more bouts. And here's another thing. What I said about you getting that adaptation in the beginning, the addition of these nuclei, where did they come from? Well, a unique feature of eccentric exercise is that untrained subjects get stiff and sore the next day due to what? Muscle damage. It never says in NCBI that trained people doing eccentric got this damage. It's eccentric that untrained subjects got this damage. Get it? And even in NCBI, myonuclei precedes hypertrophy are not lost on detraining. That map at the bottom tells you right there. It says untrained, first training, satellite cell fusion. How is the satellite cell able to fuse? It only comes out of quiescence. In an adaptation, it has to be damaged. It has to be damaged. Specific damage has to happen for it to come out to donate its nuclei to that domain to support further muscle growth. Get it? But during that hypertrophic process, it reaches a domain limit. There's no more. It's not going to keep giving you additional nuclei. And nuclei are post-mitotic. They do not split. So she's telling you, okay, you could just bulk and these muscles are just going to keep getting bigger. They're not, because the nuclei are post-mitotic. They do not split and divide and increase in number. They have to be donated by the satellite cell only in an adaptation, which is astronomically difficult. You have no idea.
Is going to be conducive of that extra muscle. Specifically when we're talking about like getting fatter, if you're coming from a place where you're very small, going and bulking to an extent that you are at a higher body fat percentage, you are increasing the amount of fat cells that you have, because that is one of the primary.
Yeah, and you're increasing. It's an energy source, and you're increasing glycogen in the muscles. So you're increasing the glycogen in the muscle. The sarcoplasm is going to expand, and you're going to increase fat cells. So where's the muscle? What muscle did you build?
Very like starting points of body fat gain. So it's you're almost stepping on your own foot when you want to
get a duh moment. It's a duh moment. What?
Get leaner. And I don't think that newbies should be bulking until they're like overweight and obese.
Very interesting point. Now remember, I'm old. I'm 49.
Holy shit, that made absolutely no sense.
Pushing 50 keys of testosterone across the border, but that's besides the point.
He's pushing 50. I'm pushing 60.
22. When I was your age, you weren't even born yet. And we learned that there was 3 times in your life where fat cells could divide. This is what I was taught. When during pregnancy, when
Fat cells do not divide. They simply get bigger, but they do not divide. You don't get more of them and you don't get less of them. He's wrong.
you're a baby or during puberty, that was the only time that fat cells could actually divide and multiply. But what I'm hearing is that new science is saying that when you go on a bulk, the fat cells, the billions or however many you have, some of them are dividing and they're there permanently. And so if you bulk and cut every time you go about this, you're actually having more fat cells. And so
Never heard that. I never heard that anywhere in science. It says once you get these fat cells, they're there for life. They get bigger, they get smaller. They don't go away, and you don't get more of them. Never heard that Greg saying they split and divide fat cells.
it's even going to be harder to stay lean over time.
Yeah, so basically the entire idea behind
That's like muscle cells. They do not split and divide and increase in number. How do you get more of these muscle cells? Well, the satellite cell has to be activated. How is it activated? When there's relatively a very astronomically high amount of damage to those muscle fibers. I would call them micro injuries. If they're injured, it'll leave quiescence and it'll donate some nuclei to support some growth there, because it has to go through a repair and remodeling now to make it a lot stronger, because it believes that this was something very bad. And so it'll repair it and remodel it a lot bigger and stronger, so it's resilient from further assaults in the gym, so from growing any more muscle. That too prevents it from growing any more muscle, because it's really hard to damage them with a second bout. Almost astronomically difficult. You have any clue in your mind how hard it is?
that we have about 300 different overfeeding studies, and you can see this in the systematic review. And I can send over the link too if you want to pull it up.
Again, you can overfeed to high heaven, but guess what? Without those nuclei, you cannot synthesize protein. That domain has ceased.
Or whatnot. But there's been over 300 overfeeding studies over the past some odd years. I don't even remember how long, but it's a lot of studies. And what we've seen is in healthy young individuals who eat and overeat in a caloric surplus, they start gaining fat cells first. And this makes sense from just like a survival and evolutionary perspective, where if we were out in the wild and
That makes absolutely no sense. If NCBI tells you that protein synthesis needs to exceed that breakdown to see that mass on that myofibrillar, it doesn't say eat carbohydrates. Carbohydrates don't build muscles, lady. What are you talking about? Man, slave food diets do not build muscles. Protein builds muscles, okay? And the nutrients that are found in that muscle protein, in that meat animal protein, okay? All right? You need all these nutrients. You need all of them, which is not deficient in any nutrients, meat products. So I have no clue what you're talking about. You're going to get fat and then you're going to build muscle. No, it doesn't work like that.
we were faced with a surplus, wouldn't it be better to have more fat storage?
You don't need, no. Why would you do that? You don't need to do any of that. And protein doesn't make you fat.
So that way, when you do cut back down, you end up you have that essential body fat that you need.
This sounds ridiculous. So get fat and cut. They're always like, get fat and cut back down. You're always going to be the same. That's why these natural shows, they suck. These natty people that are in gyms, they all suck.
Because you have more energy stores. So typically when you start overfeeding, fat cell division is the first step. And then from there, they become,
The best energy stores is from animal fat. The more cholesterol you have circulating from animal fat, eating animal fat, like egg yolks and animal fat and whatever, the more chances you have of building these muscles, providing you get an adaptation. But without it, you can't build anymore.
hypertrophy. And although the fat cell division is not the problem, the hypertrophy part is. So if you want to think about it like this, if your fat cells are dividing, that's not going to be a huge deal for you in the short term. But in the long term, when those fat cells hypertrophy, that's when they're going to start sending those, I want to say, metabolic dysregulation signals, which are not not conducive of being able to diet down.
And so, from an evolutionary perspective, this seems to make sense because a lot of people think that we're like, it's 2024, you can identify for whatever you want and so on. But we got to think 10,000 or 100,000 years ago, we didn't have what we have right now. And so, if you were being faced with starvation in the winters, and every time you had to go through that, if your fat cells divided and became more plentiful and it made it easier to get fat, that would actually be a good thing.
I've never heard of fat cells dividing. Did this say that anywhere in science? I don't know what science this is. Man, they're supposed to stay with you the rest of your life.
2024, being fat, obese, this is not good. But thousands of years ago, it probably was.
Maybe they're talking about skin cells. As a fat person, when you lose that fat, you go kind of back to normal, right? But then you notice they have a lot of loose skin. Now that definitely stretched out and it caused it to create more cells, the skin. So you have a lot of loose skin there. It increased in number. But your fat cells, they don't increase in number. They just get bigger or smaller. They get big, really astronomically big, or they get small. That's it. You don't get division in fat cells. This is a lie. Your skin, because it's stretched, yeah, but not fat cells. Not fat cells.
And so, from an evolutionary adaptive thought process, it makes sense that that's how our bodies would work.
No, that doesn't make sense. No, there's different types of fat cells in your body. They say white, beige, and I don't know what's the other one, brown or something, right? And how they work are totally different. One is bad, the other one is more thermogenic. It's a lot better for you.
Yeah, it does. And even though I'm not very big on the whole like ancestral, like look at what our ancestors did. Like I'm not all into that sort of thing, mainly because there's not a lot of evidence that can go to back that up. But what we do have is those overfeeding studies. And those overfeeding studies make sense from an evolutionary perspective. They also go to show like you in histology, you literally see in these healthy individuals who are overfed more fat cells. And in fact, some of their fat cells actually shrunk in size, like the average size of the fat cell shrunk because there were more. So it wouldn't make any sense if fat cell hypertrophy was the primary driver of fat gain, which is, I found it kind of interesting.
And so, are there any studies at all that say if you...
Well, this is ridiculous, man. I don't know. She's not even providing it. Neither is Greg providing any science to prove what they say. This is just fake.
You keep dieting, that maybe your fat cells stay smaller, easier?
At least I referenced NCBI, PubMed. You know what I mean? But they're not referencing anything.
Or longer, or that they disappear, and that the more times you diet, the easier it is to stay shredded? Or is that just silly to think?
I would think that the more times you stay lean, like the more, like the length of time.
You know, the best is when these people, like this girl, talks from authority. This is the worst thing, that you get these people, they talk from authority and not experience. That's why all you people are failing out there. Christ.
Time that you stay lean probably will have a bigger impact on how easy it is to stay lean rather than cycling. We know that weight cycling is inherently bad for us. We know that that can drive up insulin resistance because...
No, really? You don't say. It also increases what? Inflammaging. Yes, accelerated aging.
As fat cells hypertrophy, that's when that insulin resistance kind of comes on. And we also see that in overfeeding studies where individuals who gain weight and then lose weight, they tend to have a poor amount of insulin.
These people are all obese. That's why she's showing like bodybuilders on steroids. They're obese. They're all obese because the body, they're using wasting drugs. They're injecting wasting drugs in them so that it can preserve this energy in their body in the form of glycogen and fat. That's why they're big and fat. The only time they actually lose a lot of the triglyceride is when they go on these cutting drugs. And then they appear on stage with full bellies of like glycogen filled up in their muscles.
sensitivity where they're weight cycling. However, with that being said,
Exactly.
I don't think
Weight cycling, they're not muscle cycling. There's no muscles there, man. It's just weight.
that staying lean is inherently bad. It just would be inherently bad for building muscle because you just don't have as much body fat
No, because you can't put on any muscle because muscle has a myonuclear domain size limit. Kid, get it? Yeah.
on you to play.
It's not donating any more nuclei to that domain to do what? To support further muscle growth. So what do you need to do to support further muscle growth? Well, you're going to need addition of these nuclei. So the question is, kid, how do you get them?
Around with.
And so I think what made
Where do they come from, and how do you get these nuclei to support further muscle growth?
I think that the pushback is that a lot of people are saying main gaining doesn't work, or guys who are, I don't know if you know, like
Again, I don't know anywhere where it says to bulk to build muscle in science, or it says, or this thing main gaining. You have to main gain to build muscles. Nowhere in science does it say that. It says you need these nuclei to support further muscle growth. Otherwise, that domain has ended. Ended.
Tristan Lee, guys like
Yeah, Tristan Lee, all these guys like Tristan Lee. Yeah, these guys that are taking steroids, injecting these wasting drugs in them and stuff so they don't waste away for cosmetic purposes. Yes, okay, Greg.
single-digit body fat that are very lean all the time, and they have a harder time putting on muscle, but that's because they're not eating.
He had a hard time putting on muscle because he realized steroids weren't not building his muscles because steroids, they don't donate nuclei. Get it, guy? They synthesize protein, but they don't donate nuclei. And without those nuclei, you cannot support further muscle growth. What fucking part don't you people, you brain dead people, understand out there? Get it, man? Are you that stupid? What a bunch of clowns.
Enough in the first place. If you get to that healthy weight, that main gaining is all you need to do. But if you're
You get to that healthy weight? What's a healthy weight? What the fuck is he talking about? Look, man, if you eat your natural food as a carnivore, meat, then you're always going to be at a healthy weight, yes.
perpetually competing, like you're a bodybuilder like C-Bomb,
And what does he do? He shows these fake bodybuilders to look at them. They're all proud. Look at their faces and everything. They're on cosmetics. They're on drugs, bro.
or any Mr. Olympia competitor, of course you're going to bulk and cut. You're at 5% body fat. You might bulk.
Of course you're going to bulk and cut because here's the thing with them. They're going to bulk because they're going to retain this energy, glycogen, in the muscle in the form of, they're going to increase the sarcoplasm. And then they're going to use cutting drugs so that they reduce the size of the triglyceride in the fat cell. That's it. Yeah.
Bulk to 12 to 15, then you cut back to 5. But if you're a normal human being,
You don't cut back to 5. The drug does it for you, Greg. Like you right now. It's maintaining this phony muscle look that you have. The drugs are doing that. You don't do that. Yeah.
you're probably already fat. Most people are fat to start with. And so why are you going on a bulk if you've already bulked? If you're walking around and you're at 25% body fat right now, why are you actually adding more calories? You already have more than you need.
Yeah, no,
I don't know. Why are you eating calories to begin with? Why are you eating artificial food to begin with that domesticates you to make you like a pig, fat? It turns you from a muscular boar into a fat pig. Oh, that's great. Yeah, we want to domesticate ourselves even further, Greg. Yes, we want to get fat. Yes. We want to be obese, fat, and useless. Okay.
I totally agree with that. And I feel like a lot of people push back because they don't.
All of these lifters, they're obese. They're handicapped. They're handicapped. They're obese. Look how they walk. They're massively fat. They're holding so much energy in their muscles and in their fat. They're just fat. It's ridiculous. They can hardly move.
Actually understand what maintenance means. I get a lot of people saying that maintenance calories is just maintaining your body weight. But the issue with that,
Maintenance calories are maintaining your body weight. It's maintaining the energy that you're keeping, the fat and the energy. Yeah, these calories. But that's not protein. What keeps the muscle is protein. Yeah, it has to exceed. You have to be in a positive nitrogen balance. And unfortunately, vegans are in a negative nitrogen balance. That's why It doesn't work for them. Get it? Yeah.
Is that it's not just body fat and muscle. You have water weight, you have glycogen stores, and you can only fill, of course, you can only fill your glycogen stores to a certain extent before they're kind of capped out, and that's why we build body fat when we bulk.
No, you can fill those glycogen stores massively in the sarcoplasm. It can exponentially get massive. What are you talking about? You don't know anything about lifting.
Because it's not going towards our glycogen at that point, it's just going towards body fat.
No, it goes towards the sarcoplasm to increase the sarcoplasm, sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Boy, myofibular hypertrophy is based on an adaptation, getting these nuclei, and some other stuff. And sarcoplasmic is based on glycogen. That's what it's based on. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Got two types of hypertrophy. Got it?
That being said, being somebody.
So what do they show? They show this retarded kid called what's his name? Fit, J Fit or C Fit or whatever the hell his name is. I don't know. Some goofy kid. Okay.
Who's extremely lean and then trying to maintain probably isn't going to work too well for you. Especially if you're such a low body fat percentage. I see why bodybuilders have to do it, but even they are not necessarily
fake bodybuilders. They take drugs. That's all it does. It suppresses the triglyceride.
Doing the bulk and cut cycle because they're not bulking to an absurd extent. Like they're not trying, like, especially if you're talking about somebody as competitive.
They do bulk to an absurd extent. They look extremely fat. Have you seen them off season? They look nasty.
A sebum, I can almost guarantee he's not bulking to obesity and then coming back down.
No, he's probably 12% maximum. And all these other, like Mr.
Yeah, because they got smart. That's like Ronnie Coleman. He stayed ripped most of the year because he just realized it was a lot better for him to stay that way on these cutting drugs. They're a lot safer. They're a lot safer too, cutting drugs, than taking these other drugs. They're less toxic.
Like Derek Lunsford, he won last year's Mr. Olympia. Off season, 10% max. These guys are shredded year round, but then people will say, yeah, but they're on steroids. So do you think there's a big difference between like natural versus enhanced? So for example, an argument would be, well, Greg, you're on HRT, so you don't need to bulk and cut. But if I'm doing it natural, I need to bulk and cut. Do you think there's a difference between natties and enhanced?
No, if you're natural, you need to get an adaptation. And if you're on steroids and you want to build real muscle, you need to get an adaptation, like it says in the real world. In the natural world, you still need these nuclei to support further muscle growth. Get it? The only way to get it is in an adaptation. That's it. That's it.
In terms of the need to bulk and cut.
I would argue the exact opposite because people who are on androgenic compounds, they tend to grow faster. They have an extra, so if you want to think about it like...
Yeah, what are they growing exactly? Nothing. It's you're eating all these carbs, an artificial diet, a fake diet, carbs, and it's absorbing this energy because that's what the drug is used for, wasting. They're wasting drugs. So they're going to prevent you from wasting away, but you're injecting it endogenously. So it's the opposite. You're not starving, so your hormones went up to preserve you. So you're injecting and preserving and eating at the same time. So it's going to expand the sarcoplasm. Okay, lady? And you're going to look like you have pretend muscles.
If my pinky finger is the pathway for recovery, this is like the pathway for steroids and androgenic compounds, where they're kind of overlapping each other, but instead of having like damage and an injury to start off with the recovery pathway, you have steroids, which at the very end of the day end up in more growth. So you're not just replacing what you lost, but you're growing on top of what you already have. So you're hijacking something that normally would just keep you the same size, but using it for growth. People who are on anabolics, they're more likely to grow faster, and it just does not make any sense. Why would you say that it would work less for naturals if that's the case?
Okay, I like this. And so for people that, like, what I'm hearing is if you're natural, the argument should be definitely main gaining is going to work. But if you're enhanced, maybe bulking.
Yeah, doing it fakely is going to work, yes.
cutting would benefit you because you're building muscle perhaps 10 times faster and you need all those extra calories.
I wouldn't argue necessarily bulking and cutting. I would say that
Calories, they don't build muscles. Protein does. These fake carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, and carbohydrates do not build muscles. Oxalates and arsenic and cyanide and lectins and polyphenols and all this crap do not build muscles. Yeah, plants are deficient in a lot of these nutrients. They're deficient and they're not bioavailable. And they're anti-nutrient, and the amino acids, they're deficient in these plants, and you can't do anything with fiber. It doesn't turn into muscle fiber. I'm sorry, guys.
it would just be a different type of main gaining. So like when we're talking,
But you can. Here's one problem. Eating these grain foods, they can marbleize your muscle over time. That's what I discovered. Your muscle can become marbleized. That is a very bad thing. Eating these artificial carbohydrate diets. Yeah, it's a known fact. It can marbleize your muscle. You don't want that. You don't want that. And it'll become worse over time, and it'll impede your abilities to be fit and to lift things and to do a bunch of stuff. It'll catch up with you with the time. It's a known fact.
about main gaining, we're increasing calories in proportion to how much muscle we're gaining. So to them,
We're increasing calories to proportion how much muscle we're gaining. That makes no sense. Muscles are built through protein. Protein synthesis needs to exceed breakdown. You need to be in a positive nitrogen balance to build muscle, but you need these nuclei. Without getting additional nuclei, it doesn't matter how much protein you eat or how much carbs you eat, that cell ain't getting bigger. And muscle cells do not get big off calories, off these carbohydrate fake artificial diets. They don't build off there. They build off protein, lady. Get it? And you too, Greg.
it seems like a bulk because they're increasing those calories so quickly, but in reality, their body fat percentage is still staying the same. Like the same sort of pathways and mechanisms are going to work for people who are on anabolics versus natural. It's just
Anything is going to work artificially for people on anabolics. They're creating something artificial. And then when they go off the drugs, it all goes away because it's maintained by what? By the drug. Yeah, it's like when you go and smoke marijuana, kid. You smoke marijuana or drink alcohol, you get buzzed, but guess what? Eventually it wears off. So you have to go back to the store and spend your money and buy more drugs. Get it? Because then they wear off. They don't work anymore.
one is going to be a little faster. So you're just increasing that rate, that increased calorie amount a little bit faster. But with that being said, as I said before, maintenance calories does not necessarily equal maintenance of just body weight. It's more so maintenance of body fat because that's what we store and use when we eat too much or we eat too little.
Bulking is
That made absolutely no sense. If all you people think that bulking is going to somehow magically, I don't know, build these muscles out of fucking thin air, you got another thing coming to you listening to Greg Doucette and this crazy chick.
vaulted. Do you agree with this? Don't eat to bulk. All right.
Don't eat to bulk. What?
Need a bulk.
Don't eat fake foods to build muscles. Eat protein and try to build more nuclei. Try to get the satellite cell to donate more nuclei to support further muscle growth. I'll see you in the next one, man. That was ridiculous. See you in the next video. Tell us what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. I told you, this is the kind of people that they promote in the fitness industry because Greg promotes her because he knows she's stupid. He doesn't want to promote anything that will help you build muscle because once you find out the secret to building muscle, which I've already put out on my channel, then guess what? You don't need any of these people anymore. And now you're actually thinking with a straight mind. You have a normal mind now. You understand why you're not building muscles. You understand me? Why these things are not working, what's going on there, why, blah, 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 blah. You get the picture. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, friends.